Thing going on in Husker Nation. This is the KLIN Husker Hour.
Kicks and deals the 2-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Strike three. Jackson Brockett has the first 9-inning no-hitter for the Nebraska Cornhuskers since 1954, and he did it on his 12th strikeout.
Dunset got it! Underdog, and then one! Exclamation point! Pump the brakes!
Now your hosts, KLIN contributor Cole Stukenholtz and sports director Nate Rohr.
Good Saturday morning. Welcome to another edition of the KLIN Husker Hour, a solo show. Nate Rohr is in the air. He is flying back from West Lafayette after Nebraska softball ended their Big Ten tournament run yesterday as they fell to UCLA 4-2. They wait their tournament fate. We'll find out where they're headed for the regional round in a couple of days here. We will have, hopefully, maybe Nate will be able to check in. He lands during the show, so we'll see. We'll see if we can catch the voice of Husker softball and sports director here at KLIN a little bit later on. We will have Michael Bruntz along the way. Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7, back from a vacation of his own, and he will run down a little bit of baseball for us, along with where we're at with football season as well, recruiting, lots to get to. And also, there was some big news this week, a big news involving a Leo, and no, it's not the guy from Chicago who's now the first American-born Pope. It's the 7'1" center for Nebraska basketball, of course. That's the really big news here. Leo Curtis Friedrich, I think is actually his first name. Friedrich Leo Curtis commits to the Huskers. He was committed to Arizona State for a while, but then reopened his recruitment in April. He is Icelandic. Thor Bjarnason allegedly, reportedly helped out with this commitment. And he's 7'1", 220. So he's got some weight to put on, it seems like, with that frame. Played last year in Massachusetts at Cambridge Arts, Technology, and Science Academy. And then he played professionally in Iceland the year before that, 15 points and 9 rebounds per game. So Fred Hoiberg gets a big. And now there's two guys that are part of this 2025 prep class, if you will, along with the transfer class. So that sets it up for Nebraska basketball coming into the 25-26 season. So not the only Leo making news this week, obviously, but a very important Leo nonetheless for Husker hoops. No white smoke went up, just an email from sports information for Nebraska. Also an email from sports information, which was pretty incredible. And it's the first time this has happened in the Big Ten. There's a pitcher of the year who is also the player of the year. Yes, Jordy Ball did something that nobody in Big Ten history has ever done. It's only the third time, if I remember reading the stat right, that a power conference pitcher has been a 3-time conference pitcher of the year. She was pitcher of the year twice in the SEC at Oklahoma. Actually, that would have been the Big 12, technically. Yeah, it would have been the Big 12. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But Jordy Ball had an incredible season. She was everything that the hype said she would be. And she has won the Big Ten Pitcher of the Year and the Big Ten Player of the Year honors in the same season. Really, really incredible stuff. Nebraska is, as I mentioned, not going to win the Big Ten. They were the third place team in the regular season, and they end their season in the semis, a hard-fought loss to UCLA 4-2. And they're probably headed, as Nate's kind of detailed for us over the last few weeks, they're going to be a 2-seed, a regional 2-seed, not going to have the strength of schedule to be a host. So likely destinations are Fayetteville, Arkansas to see the Razorbacks. They could potentially go to Stillwater and see Oklahoma State. They may go down to, yes, Norman, Oklahoma, and see Jordy Ball's old stomping grounds and the Sooners. That's where we're looking to see where Husker softball could potentially end up starting the regional round next weekend. And by the time we come back around on the air on Saturday, we will potentially see how far they've gone. So that's a little bit rundown on softball. As again, we may or may not have Nate a little bit later in the show. I did want to also mention we are live now for the third week in a row, and we've got it all the kinks figured out. We're on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the KLIN socials, and we're on the Husker Hour Facebook page as well with our live video stream. So if you want to interact with the show live, we've got the live chat on there, and you can also, follow it back and see something that you didn't see live. It is again on the KLIN socials, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and we're on the Husker Hour Facebook page with that as well. So as we continue on through this spring season, it's not just Husker sports that are getting to the end. It is also my calendar getting to the end. I've got 4 kids, as I've mentioned on this show previously, often, and our calendar is pretty full. We were actually quadruple booked this last Monday. That's fun. Did not make all 4 of those events. So it's the time where you've got literally right now, my son and my wife are up in Valley for a soccer tournament. I'm coaching our 5-year-old in soccer here later this afternoon with the little kindergarten girls running around like a cluster around the ball. It's a busy time. We've got dance recital coming up here pretty quick. Just had the Cub Scout camp out last month with my other son. So, the calendar does not stop until you get to the end of the school year, until you get to the end of the season. And until then, you just kind of figure it out as you go. Sometimes things pop up that you weren't expecting. Sometimes things have been on the calendar all along, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, that's tomorrow. And you got to kind of scramble and make sure that you can make it all work. And when stuff happens like that, you have to figure out how to pivot. Okay, can somebody be here with this kid, and somebody can be here with that kid, and can we get this kid a ride with this other kid? There's a lot of things that you have to do along the way to make it all work. And sometimes when you are coaching a major college program, you've got to flip the switch and make changes on the fly to make things work just the same. And that's what Will Bolt and Rob Childress did this week. They had a big decision to make, and they made a big decision, and it worked out very well last night. Tucker Timmerman gets the Friday night start, takes the ball from Will Walsh, who had been the Friday night guy since Mason McConaughey's season-ending injury. But Walsh has struggled. He had that great outing against Iowa. And I mean, great. Going up against maybe will be the Big Ten pitcher of the year for Iowa. And Will Walsh was right there, hanging tough, went 7 strong, shutout, not shutout. He gave up one big bomb. It was a home run, and that was the only run of the game in a 1-0 loss for Nebraska. But since then, he has not made it out of the 4th inning. And that's a problem. Nebraska has continually buried themselves on the front end of their games, and it's buried themselves on the front end of those weekend series. And they've just had to dig out. And they've shown a tremendous amount of grit and toughness to be able to continue to still win series, even though they've been losing on those Friday nights. But this week, you saw Will Walsh make an appearance in the Creighton game. And that kind of piques your interest, like, oh, that's interesting. And sure enough, Tucker Timmerman gets the ball on Friday. And Timmerman went 7 strong innings, gave up 2 runs, got the job done, got it to the bullpen. Nebraska's offense put up just enough. You got 3 runs, and the Huskers are able to win a Friday game 3-2 to get the opening game of the series finally. Nebraska's made a very, very bad habit of having to win games 2 and 3 to stay on the winning end in these weekends. And now they're ahead of the game. You could win the series today and go for a sweep tomorrow, which would really help solidify their spot in the Big Ten tournament as they're trying to make sure they are one of those top 12 teams that can qualify to go to Omaha. It's their tournament to defend. And you would really, really hope that they can make it. That's kind of a baseline expectation for the program. So the move to make that change, the fact that you have guys who are capable of potentially going into that role, and the fact that you have coaches who are, they're looking at it and they see, hey, Will Walsh has been our guy. He's reliable, but lately he hasn't been giving us the results. That's a tough conversation to have with Will Walsh, I'm sure, as he's a competitor and he does not want to give that ball up. But at the same time, you have to do what's best for your ball club. And they figured it was best to make a change to go to Tucker Timmerman, and it worked out. Timmerman went 7 innings. It's something that Walsh has not been able to do is to get further into games. So not only does Timmerman get the win, but he also helps preserve the bullpen for the rest of this weekend. You don't know what's going to happen today. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow against the Wolverines. So you have to make sure that you are ready with any scenario bullpen wise, and having that early week starter go a long ways is really the best way to get that done. And that's exactly what Timmerman did. The other thing that this reminds you of is obviously Tucker Timmerman is the guy that took the ball off the face against Vanderbilt earlier this year, and he was only recently able to come back. Go back to the beginning of the season and just think about what Nebraska's staff was shaped up to be. They had Mason McConaughey lined up to be their Friday night starter, who was a preseason All-American. He was not Brett Sears last year, but he was dang close, and Brett Sears was incredible. But Mason McConaughey was really, really good in that Saturday spot last year, and he was your guy to go on Fridays. You lose him early on, and you lost Tucker Timmerman for a good chunk of this season too. And so having him back and him showing you what he is capable of, it really reminds you of, okay, wow, Nebraska not only lost the one arm that we all know and remember, but with Timmerman showing you what he's capable of, they really lost 2 really good arms. And Ben McLaughlin did point this out on our show last week. That's 160 some innings, I think he said, that they have to fill with other guys who aren't as talented, aren't as experienced, aren't as ready for the moment. And frankly, some of those guys didn't get it done. And that's why Nebraska is in this situation, just right at 500, heading into this second to last weekend series. So Timmerman and McConaughey were huge losses. And the fact that you got Timmerman back and you were able to slide him into the Friday role, and he's able to deliver the win on Friday night in a must-have series here late in the season to make sure they get into the Big Ten tournament and keep their regional hopes alive. Boy, it really does illustrate it's a thin margin, and Nebraska really did get unlucky with that pitching. So glad to have Timmerman back for sure. You really hope that Walsh can continue to keep the confidence up, and he'll get his chances as he goes on. Maybe he'll pitch later this weekend in the bullpen. I'm sure they'll need him if they make the Big Ten tournament at some point. He made his bones in the Big Ten tournament. That's kind of where he kind of emerged onto the scene with a complete game out of nowhere against, I think, Michigan State a couple of years ago. So get there, get Will Walsh another shot, have him build his confidence back up, and see what happens. They're positioned at this point to still make it in and defend that championship title. And so you finish this series out the right way, you win it, you move on, and then you go to the regional round. That's the goal at this point. And then when you have the season that you've had, all the struggles, the up and down performances, they've been riding the roller coaster, but they still have their goals in front of them. And that's all you can ask for at this point in the season. All right, so that's a quick look at Husker baseball. We will get more into that when we get with Michael Bruntz here from Husker 24/7 a little bit later on. When we continue, though, some football news. You've got recruiting. You got an appointment to the College Football Playoff Committee. I'll tell you what does and does not matter with Troy Dannon being in the room where it happens. Plus, a nice little cameo appearance for a couple of faces of the Husker football program at a national event earlier this week. That's all coming up, and we will continue on. Solo show with Cole Stukenholtz here. Nate Rohr maybe be able to call in a little bit later as he's flying back from West Lafayette. More to come here on the KLIN Husker Hour. Stick with us.
For over 80 years, Farm Bureau Financial Services has been protecting farmers and ranchers season after season.
You need to know you're covered and you've got somebody covering your back.
You've got local
on 1499.3 KLIN.
So what exactly does it mean for a school's athletic department to have their AD in the room where it happens? You don't have to go that far back to think of the NCAA basketball tournament, as North Carolina's athletic director was the chair of the selection committee. And lo and behold, North Carolina's on the bubble, underachieving as they did. And wouldn't you know it, they're the last team in, basically, and probably undeservedly so, based on the way that every expert that does bracketology had things forecasted. Now, is the North Carolina athletic director literally in the room, physically in the room, when the rest of the ADs and administrators are discussing North Carolina in particular? No. But is North Carolina's athletic director in the room for all the rest of it? Yeah. Do they know the North Carolina athletic director is there? Are they talking with this guy? Are they interacting with this guy? Yeah, they are. We are humans. There are biases that just exist without us consciously having them run things, right? Our biases aren't like automatically making their decisions, but there's influence there. So I say that all to say, as the news came out this week that Husker athletic director Troy Dannon is going to serve a term on the playoff selection committee. It will. All right, let's just go through the scenario, right? So let's say Nebraska in 2025 has an Indiana-type season, right? You get Nebraska to, let's say, 10-2. All right, and they're right there on the bubble. They're being discussed for that, 10, 11, 12 seed. They're hoping that there's not an upset in the ACC championship game like there was this past season, that maybe knocked Alabama or Ole Miss out of the playoff. And you get to the selection committee, and Troy Dannon's on it. What does that mean, and what doesn't that mean? So yeah, number one, there's the rule where if your team that you are responsible for, you are employed by, is being considered, is being discussed in the room, if that's happening, you are not in the room. Okay? They kick you out of the room, and that's the way it is. So the other team, the other people in the room, they are discussing all of that, right? And that's happening while you're out of the room. But during the rest of the time you're there, during considerations for other schools, during times where they're discussing conferences, or they're discussing, this team played Nebraska. Where's Nebraska ranked in this as a quality win, a tier 1 or tier 2 win for this other team? Like, there's a lot of crossover, I guess is the good way to say it. There's a lot of crossover in terms of looking at other teams as it relates to your team. It's not possible to just say, okay, we're only going to consider this one team, have that conversation exist in a vacuum, and not have it relate to any other team that's being considered. So yes, he's not going to be in the room, but there's nothing bad about having your AD on the committee. It doesn't necessarily mean that if Nebraska is on the cut line, having Dannon there is the difference between getting that 12 seed and being that first team out. That's not what that is. But it gives Dannon and honestly, it gives the conference as well a little bit more perspective, a little bit more expertise, credibility, whatever word you want to use in the room. Anytime you have somebody from, a small conference, they're going to give you insight into, hey, Boise State's resume is actually more impressive than you think because this, and this. They followed that school more closely. They've seen their games. They know about injuries, or hey, this coach was suspended, or when they played this team had this really good player go out in the first quarter. Like, those little details. I don't know that that's going to, make a difference in terms of making the playoff and not making the playoff, but there's just more expertise as it relates to Nebraska, Nebraska's opponents, Nebraska's conference. So again, and the other thing is it's a prestigious position for any school to have their guy at. It's one thing to say that you have influence in the college game. It's one thing to say, oh, we've got these national championships in our history. We've got all these conference championship games in our history. We are still considered a blue blood because of the length of time that this program had that was at the top of the college football mountain and all of the accomplishments that they stacked up along the way. We still matter. We are still a big part of the conversation. We still move the needle. The other and so that part of it is helpful too. You are a more prestigious entity when you've got people who are involved in those big decisions. And I mean, Nebraska still, even though they had all those years with no bowl game, even though they're still looking for their first conference championship since 1999, they are still a force to be reckoned with when it comes to TV ratings, social media interaction. Recruiting gets a lot of attention. If you're getting recruited by Nebraska, your needle goes up a little bit. Nebraska still remains relevant in the college football landscape, and this further solidifies that. So Troy Danon on the playoff selection committee. The other football news this week, Nebraska got a new commit, and it is not a 2027 quarterback, so not as impactful a position as last week's was, but I would argue maybe one that's more important from a local perspective, as the Huskers get linebacker Jace Reynolds. He's an Elkhorn North product, and it's the fourth commitment for the 2026 class, the first since November. So over 6 months ago. It's been a while. And Jace Reynolds is, the linebacker position, the depth, that can change from year to year with the portal, with, incoming and outgoing players. Toss that part aside for a sec. The in-state commitment for Nebraska is important enough on its own. There's a lot of discussion about how, okay, well, this player is getting this offer from this school. You've got the Millard South quarterback, Jet Tamala, getting offers from, he's got an offer from Ohio State. And Nebraska hasn't offered him. Well, Nebraska has a 2026 quarterback. Nebraska has a 2027 quarterback now committed. They can't take everybody. So the fact that you make an offer in-state, you really want to get that kid. You don't want to be throwing offers out there to players in the state of Nebraska and say, yeah, no, I'm going to go to Iowa State. No, I'm going to go to Oregon. I'm going to go to Auburn, wherever it may be. So the fact that Nebraska got him, and this is on the heels of, they got Tyson Terry, Connor Booth this past season. They got Caleb Benning. The year before that, Donovan Jones out of Omaha North, who played a little bit in that bowl game. Got to maintain the connection to the in-state kids. Got to maintain the pipeline to Omaha area as well, and Elkhorn North is just that. So, whether it's somebody else at Westside, the other Elkhorn schools, the Gretna schools, the OPS schools, Bellevue, got to maintain those ties, those connections, and getting that commitment from Jace Reynolds at Elkhorn North is hugely important towards that end, because you don't want the perception to be, well, Nebraska is getting kicked around in their own state. The kids in the state don't want to go there. Why should I go there? Nebraska's not doing what my parents say Nebraska used to do. So why should I go there? So you want to have the in-state kids go there. And then the next step is you want to have those in-state kids succeed. The John Bullock story is great, but he was a walk-on. They didn't count on him to come and be a big-time player. So if you can get a Caleb Benning to be a big time contributor this season, that would go a long way. Carter Nelson, if you, 8-man football as it is, but you want the Nebraska kids to start to do some things to further solidify, hey, I know that I can make a difference there because this kid that I played against, he's doing that. And kids are competitive. Hey, I'm better than him. I can go play. So big commitment for Nebraska. It's not a quarterback. It's not as flashy a position, not as important a position either. No, don't get it twisted. But a very big decision, and it goes Nebraska's way this week with Jace Reynolds in the class of 2026. I'll ask Michael Bruntz his thoughts on the Jace Reynolds commitment, the Troy Dannon appointment potentially, as well, what he thinks of that, and definitely dig back into Husker baseball with Bruntz when we come back here on the KLIN Husker Hour.
If you're over age 60 or disabled, aging
and Husker Hour on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Rolling along here on your Saturday morning, and now we keep the conversation going with Husker baseball, Husker football, and whatever else we can think of as we bring Michael Bruntz in to the show, joining us again here on Husker Hour. Bruntz, how we doing?
Not bad. What's going on?
Oh, we're trying to make it through the rest of spring season. I've got one kid in Valley, Nebraska for a soccer game right now. We've also got dance recital coming up. It's kids keep you busy. The activities don't stop.
Yeah, May is like a special kind of hell for kids' activities too. It's like between school, you got recital season, which you mentioned. We just went through that for the last couple of weeks, so I can understand. You're just hanging on basically until Memorial Weekend. So Godspeed.
Yes, exactly. Well, and sometimes you have to adjust on the fly. And I had this monologue earlier in the show. Will Bolt, Rob Childress, they adjusted here on the fly and made the change to the Friday night starter this late in the year, and it worked out well yesterday with Tucker Timmerman getting the win, 7 strong innings, got out of a jam late. What did you think when you saw, you start with Will Walsh coming into the Creighton game? You're like, wait a second, Tucker Timmerman getting the ball, and then the performance that he put on, pretty big stones on the coaching staff to make that change this late in the year.
It is, and it's, I think I've kind of been trending that way anyways. And I mean, hypothetically, Tucker Timmerman doesn't catch that ball with his face in opening weekend, and I mean he's probably in the starting weekend rotation, probably by like March, like if things being normal. So yeah, but I mean to change course late, they needed to do something because until last night they'd only won one Friday night game in conference play. Walsh had just not been on a good trend over his last 3, basically since the Iowa series in early April. Had really kind of struggled to get through four full innings on Friday night, and you can't have that because it just taxes you so much to have to get in your bullpen early on Fridays, but also to come back on Saturday and Sunday and win a series that way. And, Nebraska, to their credit, has done that, but I mean, it's a little less stressful when you get your starter through 7, looking the way that Tucker Timmerman did last night. I mean, it was a tough decision, but it was one that needed to be made, and certainly the results last night backed up their confidence that they had in him.
Yeah, and it really does, and the results being there, they've put themselves in a hole on all of these weekends lately, right? Like you lose Friday and then you have to win that Saturday, Sunday. Now it's a completely different mentality. We'll see if they can still keep the same edge that they've had on Saturday and Sunday going forward. Looking at the standings, they're sitting in 10th place, tied for 9th, but they have a tiebreaker over Rutgers, right behind Illinois. Knowing where they're sitting in conference play, and knowing that they've got the talent to do it if they continue to get the results. What do you think the mentality is for the team right now, just based on how Will Bolt is making his comments to the media and what the message is as far as how they are going into these games, knowing that it's basically winner and the season's over?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think everybody's aware of what the math is over there. The name of the game is winning as many games as you possibly can. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be a Tom Amansky video, but just as much as as long as you're walking off the field a winner, I mean, they'll take that right now. And, look, this year's team has been a bit of a maddening group in some ways because there hasn't really been, a long winning streak. There hasn't really been a long losing streak. And, it's a lot of the same guys that went on this run last year, this magical run in the Big Ten tournament to win that. And, for whatever reason, you're just sitting there trying to start the fire, and it's just not catching. So we'll see if they can do it here. I mean, the fact that Timmerman kind of came in and gave them a great start last night, they still have Walsh available in the bullpen. That's a good sign, at least going into the rest of the weekend. But, the math is pretty simple over there. Like you just got to keep winning games. And, look, this is a good Michigan team. I mean, they're a fringe NCAA tournament team right now. I think they'd won 8 straight coming into the weekend. I think 15 of their last 18. So it's not, they didn't beat a nobody last night. So it's approach is the same. You're going to need Ty Horn to be good again today, and you're going to need the offense to kind of piece things together. I mean, as frustrating as it was to watch Nebraska kind of run itself out of innings last night, at least you can say they were setting things up, which, that was a good arm they faced last night for Michigan too.
Yeah, Michigan coming into the weekend had designs on maybe sneaking into that top 4. They're sitting in 6th place right now, 14-11. And yeah, like you said, they've been on a pretty good run to get themselves into that position. Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7, joining us here on Husker Hour. Let's pivot over to football real quick. As Troy Dannon was named to the college football playoff selection committee, I have thoughts on this. I wonder what you think, what does or does not matter in terms of Dannon being in the room when it happens.
Yeah, I mean it's good to have somebody there. I think it helps Nebraska in terms of just kind of having a voice and not necessarily who gets in where and that kind of thing, but you've got somebody that's kind of pulling the levers of power there. I think Troy Dannon, I think he's a lot more involved in kind of the comings and goings of kind of big picture college athletics than maybe what people around here think. And I think, when you see, that his name pop up there, it kind of comes out of left field in some ways for people, but he's a respected name in college athletics. And I think, the fact that he was added there kind of speaks to that. So anytime you can have somebody that can be a bigger voice in conversations, not even necessarily about the playoff, but, somebody weighing in about what the heck college athletics is going to look like. Because, let's be honest, nobody knows right now what, this is going to look like 6 months from now, let alone 3-4 years down the road. So, having somebody like that in the captain's chair as the AD, I think that helps. I think he's got a decent vision on things. So, and it doesn't hurt, I guess, too, that you've got another Big Ten voice on the playoff committee. So, Nebraska needs to kind of hold up their own end of the bargain on the field before you kind of start worrying about what kind of power he wields there. But I think it was at least noteworthy that he's on there. I think that's kind of a good thing for Nebraska in the Big Ten.
Yeah. The other football news this week, commitment of Jace Reynolds, a 2026 linebacker out of Elkhorn North. Is it a big deal that Nebraska gets a commitment from an Omaha kid? It seems like that's a tie that they want to maintain, obviously being in state and a very big metro area where you've got players who aren't getting offers that are, maybe the player or the parent is maybe a little bit upset about it, but, to still have that foothold in Omaha and still be getting kids has got to be a big deal going forward, right?
Yeah, well, and he was also a kid that, Nebraska kind of identified at their own camp. Obviously the offers, followed Nebraska, but, he's kind of the more traditional rural recruitment where, a guy shows up, works out really well, and, earns the offer. And Nebraska really, recruited the heck out of him. And he had some Big Ten schools, some regional schools that were starting to take notice a little bit. And so, yeah, I think that's a big one, especially given the amount of time that Nebraska's recruited him for. It's been over a year. And, I get the conversation about Omaha. I'll be interesting to kind of see, what does that look like a year or two from now? I think locally the 2026 class for Nebraska is going to be somewhat quiet. They've offered a few guys, but, it hasn't been the big, kind of runs of offers that Nebraska's made to in-state guys in the past. And I do kind of wonder sometimes whether, Nebraska will ever be able to do enough to kind of appease the people in state that want to see those offers made. It feels like, Matt Rule's in no different of a situation than Scott Frost was, or Mike Riley was, or, even Bo Pelini was. So it's always kind of a delicate dance you have to make, but, I do think 26 is going to be a little bit of a quieter year. Nebraska, with the way that its roster is right now, as we, sit here in May, is probably looking at a pretty small high school recruiting class just based on the numbers of guys they've taken in the past few years. Of course, you could have roster turnover and everything else, and nobody knows, what the hell the roster limits are going to be when this is all said and done. But getting him in the fold, I think, was a good thing. And I think they've done a fairly decent job recruiting the linebacker position. I think that one, more than about anything on the roster, is one that probably gets overlooked in terms of who they've recruited, not only out of the high school ranks, but also the portal, and also the way they've developed guys. Rob Dvorak has done a really nice job, I think, of coaching guys up and getting contributors out of guys on the roster.
Yeah, and the recruiting angle and getting guys out of the Omaha area being an emphasis, it's not like the superstars on the team have been from Nebraska either. Like, you just got 3 guys from Bellevue West on last year's class, and they're already all gone. Xavier Watts at Notre Dame is really the only one that I can think of within the last like 5-6 years who's left the state and gone on to excel elsewhere. So it's almost like, the staff is maybe looking at this and saying, well, are we getting production out of the guys we get from the state or not? They're going to do their thing. They're going to evaluate. They're going to find the traits they want and make those offers based on that. But you say that, obviously Nebraska needs to hold up their end of the bargain in terms of the playoff committee discussion. Nebraska kids have to hold up their end of the bargain if they're getting recruited to Nebraska and make the plays and be able to, set themselves up for success if they come to Nebraska too.
Yeah. And I think, and Matt Rule, I want to say it was like the second or third week of the spring, was asked about that. And I think, hit it pretty succinctly that, that there's been some in-state guys that have come in and have had success recently. And, those guys are really important. I think where Nebraska needs to be careful is taking in-state guys just to take in-state guys.
Yeah.
And when you start talking about the roster limits and things like that, you need guys that are going to come in your program and maybe not play right away, but at least kind of trend in a way that is going to allow them to get on the field semi-early. And I think that's, sometimes been the issue in recent years is you've had guys that, it was kind of clear by, let's say, like year 2 that, that this was not trending in a way where somebody was going to help you. And so you're not running a charity down there, right? Like you need guys to be able to come in and help you win football games. And it's just, Nebraska is a unique place where you have to be very cognizant of that. And it's, you also you're not going to have the strong walk-on program either at your disposal to kind of sneak in some of those guys that are maybe more of those, fringe type guys. So it's a tough spot. We'll see how Nebraska is able to kind of navigate that. But, it is, I get the hand wringing when you see guys going to other Big Ten programs or getting offers outside of Nebraska. So, you just gotta, I think you put it in a pretty good way there, Cole, where you just kind of have to have some guys have to hold up their end of the bargain too. If they're going to get those offers and ultimately commit.
Yeah. Hand wringing will never go away. We both know that. We'll get you out here in this one. I know we talked about the Dannon to the selection committee. What's more important, having Dannon in the room for the committee decision or having Matt Rule, Dylan Raiola, and Emmett Johnson front row at WWE Raw in Omaha?
So does Dannon have to recuse himself? Like, does he have to step out of the room?
Yeah.
Like if Nebraska's so I mean, there's probably limits there, right?
Exactly.
Like, maybe you're walking in from the parking garage or something, and you maybe casually mention, hey, we're looking pretty good this year, that kind of thing.
Right.
But I don't know. I think there's probably more staying power with the front row at what is it, Raw? Is that what it is now?
Monday Night Raw, and I don't know, the other one's SmackDown. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I stopped watching wrestling like in the WCW Nitro, those types of eras. So I'm a little behind there.
Yeah, no, you want to have that national brand. You want to stay on Pat McAfee's good side too. That's what Matt Rule's doing as well. So it
doesn't hurt.
No,
it doesn't hurt.
Definitely doesn't hurt. All right, Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7, covers football, baseball, very well over there at the website and on the podcast. Hey, we'll see the rest of the weekend if the Husker baseball team is worthy of back-to-back AAU national champions in the field.
Yeah, they could use it with the base running, I think, for sure. They need to pop into VHS.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks.
All right, there goes Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. Yeah. Rule, Raiola, Emmett Johnson, all front row there at WWE Monday Night Raw. And yeah, I got the heads up from wrestling expert Kenny Larrabee here in studio that yes, that is in fact that I did say that right, that's the right event. So always good to know that. All right, as we continue on here, we are gonna get you ready for the weekend as Husker baseball is going to have 2 more against Michigan. They'll have the series to wrap up the regular season next weekend, and then softball as well. We'll be looking to hear their name called for the regional round. Plus, some news on Nebraska football's schedule this week came out this week, and we'll tell you what that was, how that might affect Nebraska's Big Ten opener. That's all coming up as we wrap up the KLIN Husker Hour. Stick with us.
Save big on everything you need when you shop at
Good stuff, as always, with Bruntz. If you miss Bruntz, you can always make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast. You just search KLIN Husker Hour on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, wherever you listen. And also, you can go back to the KLIN YouTube page. We are streaming now video, KLIN socials, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We're on the Husker Hour Facebook page as well. And we do have the live chat through StreamYard if you want to interact with me during the show. So that's a little added feature with the video as well. Big thanks to Kenny Larrabee of helping make sure that we have that going and helping me making sure that I am clicking the right stuff. I think so far so good today. And so far so good with Michigan and Michigan football basically saying, oh yeah, we didn't do anything wrong these last few years with the Connor Stallions spying on the other team, getting the play calls, stealing signals illegally in terms of sending people to other people's games and things like that. So now you have the Jim Harbaugh has a show cause, can't coach in college right away if he comes back. Also, you have had other coaches suspended, and now you will have Sharon Moore, Michigan's head coach. They are self-initiating a suspension for him, and it's not the first 2 games of the season, because the second game of the season, Michigan is playing Oklahoma, which is Sharon Moore's alma mater. No, they're initiating the suspension for week 3 and 4. And who does Michigan play in their 4th game? Your Nebraska Cornhuskers. It is the Big Ten opener for both teams. And Michigan will be without their head coach. Nebraska will potentially be 3-0 if they can get by Cincinnati early on and take care of business in the rest of the non-conference schedule. And then they'll get Michigan without the head man. So what does that mean in terms of the game plan, leading up to the game? Obviously that'll not impact things, but in terms of in-game, if he's the guy making the 4th down call, if he's the guy subbing somebody in because he sees something, like whatever the case may be, whatever Moore's in-game strengths are, you can take those out. That's not going to be a factor now. So Nebraska has a little bit different look for that Big Ten opener this season. And hey, it can't hurt. I mean, you probably want to be the team that has their head coach for the game, as opposed to being the team that is without their head coach. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that it's probably a benefit to have Matt Rule on the sideline, as opposed to, having, whoever it is, Phil Snow or John Butler or Dana Holgerson stepping in to be a head coach for a day, right? So Sharon Moore, we hardly knew ye. We won't see you here this season, I guess, and we didn't see you last year. Who knows when Nebraska will actually face Sharon Moore in a game on the football field. So that news came out earlier this week, and we're counting down. It's just a few months away from football season now. Baseball and softball winding up their years, and we will get you ready for the weekend, tell you when the Huskers play. Only 2 more chances to get out to Haymarket Park and see this Nebraska baseball team, who is right now sitting right at 500 with 5 games left to play. We'll get you ready for the weekend when we come back here on the KLIN Husker Hour.
You're listening to the KLIN Husker Hour. Executive Travel Talk is next. Huskers, this is the KLIN Husker Hour on 1499.3 KLIN.
Real quick shout out to Sting, Nebraska 2013 Waldock. My son's team, they're up 3-1 over in Valley at a tournament, so good for them. And then shout out to the 33, now 34 live watchers here to the YouTube stream, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on all the regular KLIN socials and the Husker Hour Facebook page. Again, we've got the live video up and running for a few weeks now, and so you can watch the show live. You can see what we do here in the studio. We're going to get some graphics going. We'll have this position previews coming up this summer. Be able to look at the depth chart and see the departures, the incomings, the returners, all of that stuff. So if you don't already, maybe instead of just listening on the radio, you can also check out the YouTube page for KLIN and see what we do every single Saturday morning. All right, as we get to the weekend, Nebraska baseball is taking on Michigan. Game 2 today in the series is at 2:00, so you'll hear pregame right here on KLIN at 1:30, and then tomorrow, a little bit early, it's an 11:30 first pitch. Nebraska accommodating Michigan's flight back. So it is 11 o'clock pregame right here on KLIN with the guys at Huskers Radio Network. Also, Husker softball, they will hear their name called when the selection show is, I don't remember if that's Sunday or Monday in terms of when we will know their fate, but they're almost certainly going to be a 2 seed. And as Nate has laid out for us, they're probably either going to Arkansas, Oklahoma State, or Oklahoma as their regular season and Big Ten postseason have come to an end. They fall just short 4-2 to UCLA last night with a Big Ten Pitcher of the Year and Big Ten Player of the Year, Jordy Ball. And shout out to Rhonda Revelle. I mean, Rhonda Revelle has been at Nebraska for a long, long time. She's an institution, just like John Cook has been, just like a few other Husker coaches along the years have been. And she really did pivot hard and got some really good players this season to go with Jordy Ball and make this team really upper echelon team this season. You know, it's one thing to have an incredible single, individual talent, but it's another thing to surround that talent with other legit talent to go with it. She got a lot of transfers in this year. She got a couple of really good players from in-state and in the area as well, and they've continued to develop those players too. So Husker softball, they set records for runs, home runs, total bases. They had a record for run rule wins as well. And their season, when we come back next Saturday, hopefully will still be going. It's possible that it could be over by then. But hopefully Nate Rohr will still be out of the state and covering this team on location for a few more times as they'll be into the softball regional weekend next week. And hopefully Husker baseball with a series win this week against Michigan, potentially they'll be set up to just look to improve their seeding with their season finale series next week against Purdue out in West Lafayette. And then we'll see if they can keep their Big Ten tournament title as that's in Omaha as well. So that's what's on tap for the weekend. That's going to do it for me. Thanks a lot to Michael Bruntz for joining the show. Thanks to Kenny Larrabee for getting us up on the video. And we'll catch up with Nate next time, hopefully from a destination where Nebraska is still fighting for a softball regional title. That's going to do it for us here on the KLIN Husker Hour. I'm Cole Stukenholtz. Go Big Red.
In Nebraska, we show up when friends need help. We check in on our neighbors.